We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Aleph in Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 19a. V'tava al yerecho techeles letzitziso. The Mishnah finishes that you're allowed to spin. He can spin on his thigh the techeles of his tzitzis. What it means to say over here is on Chol HaMoed you can do it in an abnormal fashion, but you can't do it the normal fashion with a spindle. Rashi over here says v'tava al yerecho achutin avalo biyado bein etzba'osav. He can't do it in his hand between his fingers. Uveplach kederachol, or do it with a spindle like the normal fashion. You have to do it with a shinoi in a different than normal fashion. And the Gemara says, Tana Rabban and the rabbis taught, Kosev Adam Tfilin and Mezuzas Liatzmo. A person on Chol HaMoed is allowed to write Tfilin and Mezuzas for himself, again for the performance of the mitzvah, but not to sell it on the open market. V'tava al Yerecho Techeles L'tzitziso, and he's allowed to spin on his thigh the strings for the tzitzis, the Techeles for the tzitzis. V'la Acherim Betova. Now he can do this for other people as long as he's just doing it for a favor and not for compensation. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, Marim, a person can use harama, umocher es shalo. What he can do is as follows. He can sell his own, let's say, tefillin or mezuzah, v'chozer v'kosev liatzmo, and then go write a new one for himself. So in this way, he's not directly writing the tefillin to sell it on the market. What he's doing instead is selling his own pair, and then writing a pair for himself. That's the idea of using a harama. Rabbi Yossi says, kosev umocher kedarko kedei parnasaso. He's allowed to write and sell in the normal fashion in order to make parnasa, in order to make money. Rashi over here says kedei parnasaso b'harvacha, for profit. V'lo ma'iri b'mi she'ein lo mayocha. We're not talking about somebody who doesn't have what to eat. Person has what to eat, but still he's allowed to do it. Ori le Rav le Rav Chananel. Rav taught to Rav Chananel. V'yamri lo Rabba bar Chananel Rav Chananel. Some people say it was Rabba bar Chananel taught to Rav Chananel the following psak halacha. The halacha is kosev u'mocher kedarko kedei parnasaso. A person is allowed to write and sell in the normal fashion in order to make a parnasa. V'tav al yerecho l'tcheles, the Mishnah said that the person can spin on his thigh the tcheles. Tana Rabban and the rabbis taught, tave adam al yerecho tcheles l'tzitziso. A person can spin the strings again on his thigh for tzitzis. Avalo be'evan, but he's not allowed to use a stone. Rashi over here says, avalo be'evan shatola bechut kedei sheyuchal l'shozor yafa. They would hang the stone from the string in order to spin it better. That was a better way to do it. Not allowed to do that in Chol HaMoed. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The Chacham say you can even use a stone. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo, Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, this is talking about in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, be'evan, no, you could do it with a stone, avalo beplach, but you're not allowed to do it with a spindle. According to Rabbi Yehuda's version, Rabbi Eliezer is a little more lenient, and the Chachamim are also more lenient in Rabbi Yehuda's version, the Chachamim Omer, and the Chachamim say according to this version, bein be'evan, bein beplach, whether using a stone, whether a spindle, it's all going to be permitted. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, V'chein Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and similarly, Rabbi Chia bar Abba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha bein be'evan bein beplach. The halacha is you can do it whether with the stone or the spindle. V'halacha, and the halacha also is kosev kedarko. You're allowed to write these things in the normal fashion. Umocher kedei parnasaso, and sell it on the market for parnasa purposes. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hakover es meso shlosha yamim kodem l'regel. Somebody who buries his dead relative 3 days before the regel, before the holiday, batla heimenu gezeira shiva. The decree of sitting shiva is completely batla. We're going to see all the Rashis on this Mishnah momentarily. Shmona, let's say it's 8 days before the regel, batlu heimenu gezeira shloshim, then there is no shloshim in that particular case. Because they say Shabbos ola ve'ena mafsekes. Shabbos counts towards the days of shiva and it doesn't interrupt. Regalim mafsikin ve'enan olim. The regalim, they interrupt and they do not count towards the days of shiva. Rabbi Eliezer says, Mishachara Beis Hamikdash. From the time the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Atzeres Kashabbos. Shavuos is exactly like Shabbos. It's not like the other Yomim Tovim. Rabbi Gamliel says, Rosh Hashanah v'Yom HaKippurim kiregalim. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're considered like regalim. They're considered like the holidays in this regard. The Chachamim say, Lo kedivrei zeh v'lo kedivrei zeh. They don't agree with Rabbi Eliezer, and they don't agree with Rabbi Gamliel either. They say Atzeres kiregalim. They say Atzeres is considered like a holiday. Rosh Hashanah v'Yom HaKippurim kashabbos. And Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're considered like Shabbos. We'll take a look at Rashi over here. Hakover meso shlosha yamim kodem haregel. The person buries his dead relative 3 days before the holiday. Hoil ve'ikar avelus eino el shlosha yamim. The idea over here is the main avelus is 3 days, so therefore batla mimenu gezeira shiva. Shiva, there is no shiva. De la'achar haregel eino tzarach limnos yoser. After the regel, you don't need to count any further. Since you did 3 days before the regel, that's the end of the shiva. Shemona yamim. If you buried the body 8 days before the regel, kodem haregel, batlu mimenu gezerah shloshim. Then there's no shloshim. And Rashi explains, the hoel v'hischel yom echad min hashloshim. Since one day of the shloshim began, because it was 8 days before the regel, so that's 7 days of shiva, and now 1 day of the shloshim. Eino tzarach lishmor klum la'achar haregel. He doesn't need to keep anything of the shloshim after the holiday. Din shloshim. There's no halachas of shloshim. Elamuter lialter b'tachposes, b'giyutz, v'tisporas. All of these things are going to be mutter that you normally cannot do during shloshim. You're allowed to do the laundry, you're allowed to shave. All of those things are now going to be allowed because there's no shloshim. Shabbos ola. Now, what's the halach of Shabbos? Shabbos counts, meaning ira Shabbos b'mei evlo ola l'minyan shiva. Let's say Shabbos is in the middle of shiva. That counts as one of the days of shiva. Ve'ena mafsekes. It doesn't interrupt. Del achar Shabbos tzarach la'ashlam shiva yemei avelus ima Shabbos. After Shabbos, you'll still continue the shiva, and Shabbos counts as one of the days of the shiva. V'haregalim mafsikin. But the regalim, the holidays, they interrupt. T'chikavar meisu shlosha yom kodem haregel. If once a person buries the dead body 3 days before the regel, mafsik ha'avelus lagamri. The avelus is completely interrupted. It's over. Uliachar haregel ein mashlam klum. After the regel, you don't have to complete it at all. Ve'in olin, t'chikavar mesu b'socha regel, it doesn't count towards the shiva, meaning the regel. Meaning, let's say, the way Rashi understands it first, if you bury the mace within the time of the regel, during the regel, t'lo batla mimenu gzeras zayin. So in that case, there still is going to be shiva. So ein yemei haregel olin leminyan zayin yemei avelus. But the days of the regel don't count towards that shiva. So if you bury the dead on the regel, you still have to sit shiva, and the days of the regel will not count towards that. After the regel, you're going to have to sit for 7 days of Avelos. Zuhi Savarasi. Everything I've said until now, Rashi says, this is my own opinion. Aval behetek matzasi, but I found copied down a different explanation. Ve'ein olin, it means as follows. It doesn't count as follows. That when a person buries the dead 2 days before the regel, in that case, the shiva is not completely cancelled. The days of the regel don't count towards the shiva. After the regel, you're going to need to sit another 5 lahashlim l'shnei yomim to complete the 2 days shenoag l'fnei haregel that he was doing, that he was practicing before the regel. But Rashi says va'ani omer, but I say kito sofer, that it's all really a mistake in the girsa. Demar shenizkar shlosha yomim l'fnei haregel. That's that which the Mishnah says 3 days before the regel you buried. Lav dafka. It doesn't have to be 3 days. Va'afilu shah achas l'fnei haregel. Even 1 moment before the regel, batlo mimenu gezerah shiva. The shiva is cancelled. The regel mafsik. The regel interrupts. In other words, Rashi is saying when it says at the beginning of the Mishnah hakover es meso shlosha yomim kodem haregel, it's just an example. But really, it could be even 1 hour, 1 moment before the regel. If the body is buried before the regel comes along and cancels the shiva. Mishachara Beis Hamikdash, from the time the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, says Rabbi Eliezer, Shavuos is considered like Shabbos. Why? She'ein la'atzeres tashlumin kol zayin, because once there's no Beis Hamikdash, you don't have another 7 days to bring the carbon of Shavuos, because there is no carbon. Ve'eno ela yom echad. So once there's no Beis Hamikdash, Shavuos really is only 1 day. So Keshabbos, it's like Shabbos. V'dino Keshabbos de ola ve'ena mafsekes. So it's going to have a halacha like Shabbos, a status like Shabbos, that it will count towards the shiva, and it will not interrupt the shiva. And Rosh Hashanah Keshabbos. And then there was also an opinion that Rosh Hashanah is like Shabbos. That was, again, Rebbe Gamliel said Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is like the Regalim. But the Chachamim said, no, Atzeres is like the Regalim, but Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is like Shabbos. Ho'el ve'eno ela yom echad. Since it's only 1 day, so it has the status of Shabbos. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav says, Gezeras bitlu, yomim lo bitlu. The gezerah is batal, but the days are not batal. In other words, this is going on the language of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said gezeras shiva. It's batla the gezeras shiva, or also by Shmona. But let's say it's 8 days before the regel. Batlu heimenu gezeras shloshim. So Rav is saying the gezerah of these days is batal, but the days themselves are not batal. Rashi over here explains gezeras shloshim bitlo. The gezerah of shloshim is batal. Avol yomim lo bitlo, but the days themselves are not. Shloshim yom lo batlu da'adayin tuluyin va'om. The 30 days are not batal, meaning they still have a status that's unclear exactly. It's waiting to be determined. V'chein amar Rav Huna, and Rav Huna says that as well. Gezeras bitlo, yomim lo bitlo. The gezerah is batal, but the days are not batal. Rav Sheshes amar, and Rav Sheshes says, afilu yomim nami bitlo. Even the days themselves, they're completely nullified. And the Gemara now says, my time yomim lo bitlu. What does it mean to say that the days are not nullified? What does that even mean? The gezerah is batal, but the days are not. What is the meaning of that? It means to say as follows: she'im lo gileach erev haregel. Let's say the person did not shave before the holiday. The halacha will be asur legaleach achar haregel. It will be forbidden to shave for the shloshim after the holiday. There's still going to be some halachas in effect. So in other words, if a certain action, depending on a certain action, in this case, you didn't shave before the regel, so then the halachas of shloshim still will be in effect. Take a look at Rashi over here. My time of yamim lo bitlu klamar be'eze inyan lo batlu yamim. Meaning, in what regard, what halachic issue are we talking about that the days are still in effect? Because when there is no shloshim, he should have, there's no shloshim in this case. Let's say again, the dead was buried 8 days before the regel. We said the shloshim is canceled. So what he should have done was he should have shaved right before the regel, and he didn't. So in that particular case, he's not going to be allowed to shave after the regel, kol shloshim yom, for all of those 30 days, meaning all of the days of shloshim. It's going to be a problem in this case. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yotes Amud Beis.